Chosen one, why can't you sleep tonight? Why does 3 a.m. feel like an interrogation room, where God keeps whispering a name you're afraid to believe is yours? Why does your body feel exhausted, but your spirit won't stop pacing, like it's waiting at a cosmic gate that hasn't opened yet? Listen to me carefully. What you're feeling right now, that restlessness, that holy agitation in your chest, that's not anxiety. That's not doubt. That's not your mind playing tricks on you in the middle of the night. That is anticipation, because something has been released in the unseen, and it's got your name written across it in letters you can't read with human eyes. October 20th is not just another Sunday. It's not just another date you'll scroll past on your phone. It is a divine delivery window, a supernatural appointment that was scheduled before you even knew how to pray. Heaven has spoken, and the order has been sent. You've been walking through years that didn't make sense. You've watched people half your age step into blessings you prayed for. You've stood at funerals of dreams you thought God promised you. You've aged in the waiting room while everyone else got called to the back. And somewhere deep in your soul, you started believing the lie. Maybe I heard him wrong. Maybe I'm not who I thought I was. Maybe it's too late. No, you didn't hear wrong. You didn't miss it. And it is not too late. What you're about to witness is not a reward for perfection. It's a reversal for perseverance. It's not compensation. It's vindication. And it's coming before dawn breaks on your doubt. Before we go further, I want to honor every single one of you who has supported this message through super thanks. Your generosity means more than you know. You're not just giving, you're sowing into a move of God that's touching lives across this nation, across the world. You're helping someone in a trailer park in Ohio feel seen. You're helping a grandmother in the Bronx remember she still matters to heaven. Whether you give or not, I'm deeply grateful. Your presence here, your time, your attention, it all matters. And if this message is already stirring something in your soul, go ahead and sow a seed of faith right now. Not because I need it, but because you do. Because giving aligns you with receiving. Now, if your spirit already knows this word is for you, if something in your chest just jumped, when I said October 20th, type 777 inches the comments right now, and press that like button if you can feel something stirring. It's not emotion, it's confirmation. Because what I'm about to tell you next will not just explain the delay, it will expose the delivery. Let's begin. Let me ask you something that's been haunting you for years. How many prayers have you sent up that never came back down? How many nights have you whispered God's promises back to Him only to wake up to the same empty mailbox, the same silent phone, the same closed doors? How long have you been telling yourself that maybe, just maybe, you misheard His voice? Here's what they don't tell you in church. Here's what gets lost in the sermons about patience and faith. The delay you've been living through wasn't because God forgot about you. It wasn't because your prayers bounced off the ceiling. It wasn't even because you didn't pray hard enough or believe long enough. The delay was because heaven was synchronizing delivery. Let me say that again, because your soul needs to hear this. The delay was not denial. It was divine choreography. And everything that seemed lost, everything that felt stolen, everything you buried in the graveyard of abandoned dreams, it's all been held in a heavenly vault with your name on it. Not lost, preserved. Now listen closely. What I'm about to tell you isn't theology. It's not theory. It's activated reality. God has issued an order, not a suggestion, not a recommendation, not a possibility, an order. And when God commands something, creation has no choice but to obey. You see, there are moments in Scripture when heaven stops being passive and becomes aggressive. When the spiritual realm doesn't just respond to prayer, it invades time. Daniel prayed for 21 days, and nothing happened. 21 days of silence, 21 days of wondering if God was even listening. But in Daniel chapter 10, the angel finally shows up and says something that should shake every person who's ever felt forgotten. Daniel, from the first day you began to pray, your words were heard. I was sent immediately. But the Prince of Persia resisted me for 21 days. Do you hear what that means? The answer left heaven the moment Daniel opened his mouth. The delay wasn't divine hesitation. It was demonic resistance. And the breakthrough came not because Daniel prayed harder, but because heaven dispatched reinforcements. Michael the archangel showed up. The warfare shifted, and what was held back for 3 weeks was suddenly released in full force. That's where you are right now. Your answer didn't get lost in transit. It's been fighting through resistance, and October 20th is the day the warfare ends and the delivery begins. Think about Joseph. 13 years between the dream and the throne, 13 years of slavery, false accusation, prison, and being forgotten by everyone who promised to remember him. But Pharaoh had a dream, one dream, and in 24 hours, Joseph went from a prison cell to running an empire. Why? Because heaven issued an order. Genesis 41 doesn't say Joseph got lucky. It says God gave Pharaoh a dream that could only be interpreted by the man he had prepared in secret. You've been prepared in secret. You've been refined in the place nobody was watching. And now heaven is about to give the world a dream only you can interpret, not because you're more talented, not because you're more educated, but because you carry the anointing of the forgotten ones who refuse to quit. Let me paint you a picture of what's happening right now in the unseen. Close your eyes for a moment and see this with your spirit. There is a courtroom in heaven. It's not like any courtroom you've sat in down here. There are no delays, no corrupt judges, no lawyers twisting the truth. In this courtroom, the Ancient of Days sits on the throne. The books are open, and your case that's been pending for years, it just got a verdict. The gavel came down, the decree was written, and an angel whose very name means God is my strength took the scroll, sealed it with fire, and began his descent. He's not walking, he's not taking his time. He is flying through dimensions you can't see, past principalities that can't stop him, through atmospheres that bend to his authority. And on that scroll, written in ink that glows like molten gold, is your full name. Not the name people call you, not the name on your driver's license, your eternal name. The one God whispered over you before you took your first breath. That angel is in flight right now. And October 20th is his landing date. You thought God was silent. But silence in heaven often means warfare in the spirit. You thought your prayers weren't working. But every word you spoke created a legal case in the courts of eternity. You thought you were abandoned. But you were being positioned for a moment so precise, so perfectly timed, that if it had come any earlier, you would have mishandled it. If it had come any later, you would have missed it. This isn't about wishing. This isn't about manifesting. This isn't about positive thinking or vision boards or declaring things into existence. This is about divine decree. When God issues an order, it doesn't ask for permission from your bank account. It doesn't check with your age. It doesn't consult your past. It simply executes. And here's what you need to understand. What's coming on October 20th won't fit in your mailbox. It's not a package you sign for. It's not a check you deposit. It's a paradigm shift. It's the kind of breakthrough that changes not just your situation, but your identity. Not just your finances, but your family line. Not just your present, but your posterity. You've been living in a season where nothing made sense, where the harder you worked, the less you gained, where the more you gave, the emptier you felt, where every door you approached slammed before you could knock. But that wasn't punishment, that was preparation. God was clearing out everything that couldn't sustain what he's about to release. Because everything is coming, not some things, not a few things, everything. The joy you lost in 2008, the confidence you buried in 2015, the hope you let go of last winter, the relationship you thought was over, the calling you thought you were too old for. The dream you stopped dreaming because it hurt too much to believe. All of it, returning, restored, redeemed, and multiplied. Now, if you believe your name is written on heaven's command, if something in your spirit just leaped when I said October 20th, I need you to do something. Type in the comments right now. I receive the order, not because it's magic, but because agreement activates authority. When your mouth lines up with what heaven has already spoken, you move from spectator to participant. So what exactly is being delivered? What does this order contain? That's what we're about to uncover next. Let me tell you something nobody else will say out loud. You weren't forgotten. You were hidden. And there's a difference so profound, so sacred, that if you miss it, you'll spend the rest of your life believing a lie about your own story. For decades now, you've watched others get promoted while you stayed in the same position. You've seen younger people walk into marriages, ministries, businesses, breakthroughs, while you sat in the same small room, praying the same worn-out prayers, wondering if God even remembered your address. You've aged in the waiting. Your hair turned grey. Your knees started aching. Your friends stopped asking about your dreams because even they got tired of hearing soon. And somewhere along the way, you started wondering if soon was just a nice word for never. But here's what the enemy doesn't want you to know. Here's what hell has been working overtime to keep you from understanding. You were not abandoned. You were stored. There's a warehouse in heaven, not a junkyard, not a graveyard, a warehouse. And in that warehouse, God doesn't keep trash. He keeps treasure. He keeps the things too valuable to release into the wrong season, into the wrong hands, into a world that wasn't ready to steward them yet. And chosen one, you are what's been stored. Not because you weren't good enough, but because you were too important to waste on a moment that couldn't sustain you. God hid you in the vault, not the trash. He preserved you, not punished you. You think you've been sitting on the bench, but you've been sitting in the secret place. And there's a reason it's called secret. Because what God does there, the world doesn't get to see. What God builds there, the enemy can't touch. What God refines there, time can't corrode. You were never behind schedule. Heaven was still building your stage. Look at Moses, 80 years old when God called him out of the wilderness to lead a nation. 80. Not 25 with a fresh degree and a TED Talk. 80. With a criminal record, a speech impediment, and a walking stick. But God said, now you're ready. Not because Moses got better, but because the timing aligned with the purpose. Look at Anna, 84 years old, sitting in the temple every single day, fasting, praying, waiting, no spotlight, no stage, no book deal. Just decades of showing up when nobody was watching. And then one morning, a baby walked through the door, and Anna recognized him. She saw the Messiah before the world did. Not because she was young, but because she stayed faithful in the hidden years. Look at Sarah, 90 years old when the promise finally showed up in her arms. 90. They'd stopped setting up the nursery. They'd stopped announcing it to friends. They'd probably stopped believing it themselves. But God wasn't late. He was exact. Because Isaac wasn't just a baby, he was a nation. And a nation can't be born from immaturity. It had to come from a womb that had been emptied of every other option, so that when the miracle came, there would be no question who did it. Do you see the pattern? God doesn't move on your schedule. He moves on his strategy. And his strategy has always been this: hide the treasure until the thieves are gone. Delay the delivery until the recipient is ready. Protect the anointing until the atmosphere can sustain it. You thought you were being overlooked, but you were being protected. Because if what's coming to you on October 20th had come 10 years ago, you would have shared it with people who didn't deserve access. You would have given your energy to relationships that were designed to drain you, not build you. You would have stepped into opportunities that looked like open doors but were actually traps set by the enemy to derail you before your real assignment even started. God knew that, so he hid you. He hid you from the wrong connections. He hid you from premature exposure. He hid you from platforms that would have praised you before you were mature enough to handle the worship. He hid you so that when you finally stepped into the light, you wouldn't be destroyed by it. The desert wasn't punishment, chosen one, it was preparation. Every year you spent in silence, God was removing something from you that would have contaminated the blessing. Every season you spent alone, He was building something in you that couldn't be built in a crowd. Every night you cried yourself to sleep, feeling invisible. He was sealing you with an oil that only comes through pressure. You didn't lose those years, you invested them. And now the interest is about to be paid in full. But here's the part that's going to wreck you. Here's the part that's going to make you fall on your knees and weep when you finally understand it. The delay wasn't about you at all. It was about the people who are waiting for you to show up. There are souls tied to your emergence. There are people who won't get free until you get visible. There are generations that won't break cycles until you break through. And if you had stepped out too early, you would have helped a few. But you wouldn't have freed the many. God wasn't just preparing you. He was preparing them. He was orchestrating an entire convergence of souls, systems, and seasons so that when you finally walked into your moment, the impact wouldn't just be personal, it would be generational. That's why it had to take this long. That's why it had to hurt this much. That's why you had to feel every ounce of the loneliness, the betrayal, the doubt, the invisibility. Because when October 20th arrives, and the curtain finally lifts, and what's been hidden steps into the light, you won't walk out with a testimony. You'll walk out with an arsenal. You won't just have a story. You'll have a strategy. You won't just inspire people. You'll activate them. And that kind of anointing doesn't come from a classroom. It comes from a wilderness. So no, you weren't forgotten. You were chosen. Chosen to carry what most people can't. Chosen to endure what most people won't. Chosen to emerge when most people would have quit. And the proof is simple. You're still here, still breathing, still believing, still standing. After everything that tried to take you out, after every voice that told you to give up, after every door that slammed in your face, you're still here. And that, beloved, is not survival. That is divine preservation. God didn't bring you this far to leave you in the hallway. He didn't hide you in the vault just to let you collect dust. He didn't preserve you through the desert years just to let you die of thirst 1 mile before the promised land. No, He hid you so He could reveal you. And October 20th is the day the warehouse opens. So I need you to hear me clearly. I need you to let this sink past your ears and into your spirit. The wait is over. The silence is breaking. The hidden season is closing. And everything that was stored is about to be released. But here's the question you need to ask yourself right now, before we go any further. Are you ready to stop hiding and start shining? Chosen one. I need you to understand something that will shift everything you thought you knew about divine timing. October 20th is not a suggestion. It's not a spiritual metaphor. It is an appointed hour written in the eternal archives before your first breath was ever taken. Heaven's courtroom just stamped your case with one word: approved. And that approval didn't get filed away in some celestial cabinet. It got sent. It cleared customs of the unseen realm. It passed through angelic corridors. And right now, it's moving through dimensions you cannot see with natural eyes. But here's what most people don't understand about divine orders. They think God moves like Amazon, fast, instant, 2-day shipping with a tracking number. You can refresh every hour. But God doesn't operate on human logistics. He operates on precision. And precision requires preparation, not just in heaven, but in you. Every closed door you faced wasn't rejection. It was redirection. Every no that crushed you wasn't God abandoning the plan. It was God protecting the plan. Because if you had gotten what you wanted 3 years ago, 5 years ago, 10 years ago, you wouldn't have been ready to steward it. You would have celebrated it for a season and lost it by the next. But now you've been through the fire. Now you've been stripped of ego. Now you've learned to worship in the wilderness. And that makes you dangerous to the kingdom of darkness. This is why the enemy has been working overtime to wear you down right before October 20th. You think it's coincidence that the last few weeks have felt heavier than usual. You think it's random that doubt started creeping in louder, that old fears you thought you buried suddenly resurfaced. No, that's not coincidence, that's confirmation. Because even darkness knows when light is about to break through. Let me take you to the book of Daniel. Chapter 10, verse 12. The angel appears to Daniel and says, "Do not be afraid, Daniel. Since the first day that you set your mind to gain understanding and to humble yourself before your God, your words were heard, and I have come in response to them. But the prince of the Persian kingdom resisted me 21 days. Did you catch that?" Daniel prayed. Heaven heard him immediately. But the answer was delayed for 3 weeks, because there was a battle in the unseen realm. The angel was fighting through demonic resistance just to deliver the message. Your delay is not God's denial. Your delay is proof that something so massive is coming your way that hell itself is trying to block the delivery. But here's the truth they don't want you to know. Resistance always breaks right before breakthrough. The darkest hour is just before dawn. And if you've been feeling like you're in the darkest season of your life right now, that's because the sun is about to rise in ways you cannot yet imagine. October 20th is the earthquake moment. It's when divine energy collides with earthly resistance and the ground beneath your circumstances starts to shift. You won't have to force it. You won't have to manipulate it. You'll just wake up one morning and the atmosphere around you will feel different. The weight that's been sitting on your chest for years will be gone. The confusion that clouded every decision will suddenly lift. The people who ignored you will start reaching out. The opportunities that passed you by will circle back. And you'll know, without a shadow of doubt, that this is not luck. This is divine orchestration. Now I want you to pay attention to something. In the days leading up to October 20th, you're going to see signs. Not signs you have to strain to find, but signs that will find you. You might wake up at 3:33 a.m. or 4:44 a.m. for no reason. You might see the number sequence 111 or 777 or 999 everywhere you turn. On license plates, on receipts, on the clock. You might have dreams so vivid they feel more real than your waking life. You might walk into a room and feel déjà vu so strong it stops you in your tracks. You might experience a sudden wave of peace that makes no logical sense given your circumstances. Don't dismiss these moments. Don't brush them off as random. They are markers. They are heaven's way of saying, "We see you, we're with you, and we're about to move." Psalm 37:23 says, "The Lord makes firm the steps of the one who delights in him." Firm doesn't mean easy. Firm means secure. It means even when the path doesn't make sense, even when it looks like you're going backwards, God has already calculated every step. And He's positioned you exactly where you need to be to receive what's already been released. Heaven doesn't use tracking numbers. But you'll know your order has arrived when your atmosphere changes. When the people around you start acting different toward you without explanation. When favor shows up in places you didn't apply, when doors swing open that you never even knocked on, when provision appears from sources that make no logical sense, that's not coincidence. That's confirmation that the divine order has landed. Now type 999 inches, the comments, if you've already felt the shift in your home, your body, your spirit this week. If something inside you has been stirring and you couldn't put words to it, if you felt a strange sense of expectation building even though nothing around you has visibly changed yet, type 999. Because that feeling is not in your head, it's in your spirit. And your spirit always knows before your mind catches up. But here's what I need to tell you before we go any further. There is one thing that could block your delivery. One thing that could cause you to stand right at the door of your breakthrough and never walk through it. And it's not what you think. It's not your past. It's not your mistakes. It's not even the enemy. It's unbelief disguised as humility. Chosen one, We need to talk about what's happening to you right now, because I know some of you are sitting there wondering if this message is even for you anymore. I know some of you have been hit so hard in the last 72 hours that you're questioning whether God's order got lost in transit. You've been walking through fire that makes no sense, financial pressure that showed up out of nowhere, family members turning on you for reasons you can't explain, your body breaking down in ways that feel timed, like something is trying to stop you from reaching October 20th. And here's what I need you to understand with everything in you. This is not random. This is not punishment. This is confirmation. Hell doesn't waste ammunition on people who aren't about to break through. You think the enemy attacks people who are stuck? No. He attacks people who are scheduled. He doesn't come after those who've already quit. He comes after the ones whose deliverance papers have already been signed in the courts of heaven. The warfare you're experiencing right now is not proof that God forgot you. It's proof that your delivery is in motion. Let me take you to the Word. Job didn't lose everything because God hated him. He lost everything because hell knew what was coming. The enemy saw the double portion before Job did. He saw the restoration. He saw the vindication, and he tried to break Job's faith before the appointed hour arrived. But here's what the enemy didn't count on. Job refused to curse God, even when his wife told him to give up, even when his friends called him cursed, even when his body was covered in sores and his children were gone. Job said, "Though he slay me, yet will I trust him." And what happened? God didn't just restore what was lost. He doubled it. Every sheep, every camel, every ox, every donkey, everything Job lost came back multiplied. Not because Job was perfect, but because Job endured the test before the testimony. Now let me ask you something. How many of you are in your job season right now? How many of you have watched everything you built fall apart? How many of you have cried in rooms where no one could hear you? Prayed prayers that felt like they bounced off the ceiling? Believed God for decades and still woke up to an empty mailbox and a broken body? You want to know why it's hitting harder now? Because October 20th is closer than it's ever been. And the closer you get to divine fulfillment, the louder the warfare becomes. This is pre-delivery turbulence. This is the shaking that happens right before the breaking open. The enemy knows he's running out of time, so he's throwing everything he's got at you. Look at Israel at the Red Sea. They had just been delivered from Egypt. They had just walked out of slavery. And then Pharaoh's army showed up behind them. The water was in front, the enemy was behind, and they had nowhere to run. That's when they turned to Moses and said, "Did you bring us out here to die? Were there not enough graves in Egypt?" Does that sound familiar? Have you ever felt like God brought you this far just to let you drown? Like he led you into a trap with no way out? But here's what Israel didn't see. God was setting up a miracle. The pressure wasn't the end. It was the stage. And the moment Moses stretched out his hand, the waters didn't just move to the side, they stood up like walls. Exodus 14:22 says the Israelites walked through on dry ground, not mud, not wet sand, dry ground. God didn't just make a way, he made it easy, he made it undeniable. And that same God is about to do it for you. You've been standing at your Red Sea for so long you forgot it's about to part. You've been staring at the impossibility for so many years you stopped believing in the miracle. But I'm here to tell you, the pressure you feel is proof of delivery, not defeat. Let's go deeper. Jesus, crucified, mocked, buried, sealed in a tomb with Roman guards standing watch. For 3 days, hell thought it won. For 3 days, the disciples hid in fear. For 3 days, it looked like the story was over. But on the 3rd day, everything changed. Death couldn't hold him. The grave couldn't keep him. Hell couldn't stop him. And he didn't just come back alive. He came back with the keys. Keys to death. Keys to hell. Keys to every door the enemy tried to lock. And right now, you're in your tomb season. You're in the silent hours before the resurrection. It feels like death. It looks like defeat. But underneath the surface, in the unseen realm, God is preparing your comeback. I need you to hear me, especially those of you who are 70, 80, 90 years old. You think you're too old for a resurrection. You think your time has passed. Abraham was 100 when Isaac was born. Sarah laughed because her body was past childbearing. But God said, "Is anything too hard for the Lord?" And she held a baby she was told she'd never have. Your age is not a disqualifier. It's a setup. Because when God moves on your behalf at this stage of your life, nobody will be able to credit your strength, your connections, or your resume. They'll have to say, "That was God." Let me speak to the exhaustion. I know you're tired. I know your knees don't work like they used to. I know you take more pills than meals. I know you've buried more people than you've celebrated. I know loneliness has become your closest companion. I know you've prayed prayers in hospital rooms, in empty houses, at gravesides, and heard nothing back. But those prayers didn't disappear. They didn't evaporate. They've been stored. Revelation 5-8 says the prayers of the saints are kept in golden bowls before the throne of God. Every tear, every whisper, every middle of the night cry, God collected them, and He's about to pour them back out as answered blessings. The attack you're under right now is hell's last-ditch effort to make you quit before the appointed hour. The financial hit, designed to make you doubt provision. The family conflict, designed to isolate you before the vindication. The physical pain, designed to make you feel too weak to receive what's coming. But here's the truth, the enemy doesn't want you to know. Hell attacks hardest right before heaven delivers fastest. If you weren't a threat, you wouldn't be a target. If there wasn't an order with your name on it, the enemy wouldn't be working overtime to destroy your faith. The intensity of the attack is proportional to the size of what's about to be released. So when you feel like giving up, remember, you're not breaking down, you're breaking through. When it feels like you can't take one more step, remember, you're not at the end. You're at the edge. And what's on the other side of this test is not just survival, it's overflow, it's vindication, it's everything you were promised. Now I need you to do something. I need you to make a declaration, not for me, not for the algorithm, for you, for your faith, for every demon that's been taunting you. Write in the comments right now, "I will not break before the breakthrough." Say it out loud. Let hell hear your faith. Let heaven witness your resolve. Because October 20th is not waiting for you to feel ready. It's waiting for you to stay faithful. And that's exactly what you're about to do. Chosen one, I need you to hear me right now with every fiber of your being. When God said everything is yours, He didn't stutter. He didn't hedge His bet. He didn't add fine print at the bottom of the covenant. Everything means everything. Not just the money you've been praying for. Not just the house with the paid-off mortgage. Not just the medical report that finally comes back clean. Those are included, yes. But that's not the fullness of what heaven dispatched on your behalf. Everything means the wholeness you lost when life broke you in half. Everything means the identity they stripped from you when they rejected you at 62 and told you that you were too old to matter anymore. Everything means the peace that's been stolen from you every single night for the last 7 years when you couldn't sleep because the fear was louder than the promise. Everything means the legacy that will outlive your body. The generational breakthrough that doesn't just change your bank account, but rewrites your bloodline. The spiritual inheritance that turns your last name into a banner of victory instead of a reminder of failure. Let me paint you a picture. Joel 2:25 says, "I will restore to you the years that the locust has eaten." Do you hear that? Not some of the years, not a portion of what was lost. All of it. Every year you spent in confusion. Every season you wasted on the wrong people. Every decade you gave to a job that used you and discarded you. God is not giving you scraps as compensation. He is giving you restoration with interest. You think you're too old for this? You think your time has passed? Listen to me. Abraham didn't receive Isaac until he was 100 years old. Moses didn't stand at the Red Sea until he was 80. Anna the prophetess didn't see the Messiah until she was 84 and had spent 60 years as a widow in the temple. Your age is not your disqualification, it is your authentication. Because only someone who has lived long enough to be disappointed, betrayed, overlooked, and written off can carry the kind of anointing that's being released on October 20th without it destroying them. Here's what's really happening. The table is set. Not a folding table in the back corner. Not a card table with mismatched chairs. Psalm 23:5 says, "You prepare a table before me in the presence of my enemies." This is a banquet table. The kind you see at weddings in Manhattan. The kind with fine china, crystal glasses, and your name engraved on every chair. And here's the part that will break you. Your enemies have to watch you eat. Everyone who said you were finished. Everyone who whispered that you'd never recover. Everyone who took your silence as defeat. They don't get to stop this. They have to stand there and witness the vindication. Not because you need revenge, but because God needs witnesses to his faithfulness. You will not walk into this moment as a beggar. You will not shuffle in with your head down, apologizing for taking up space. You will arrive as an heir. You will sit down at that table like you own it, because in the kingdom you do. Isaiah 60:22 declares, "In its time, I will hasten it." Do you see the paradox? It will come in its time, but when it does, God will speed it up. That's why it feels like nothing has happened for years, and then suddenly everything happens in a week. That's divine acceleration. That's October 20th. This is the line between waiting and walking. You've been standing still long enough. You've been holding your breath long enough. You've been rehearsing your doubt long enough. And here's the revelation that will shatter every lie you've believed about yourself. You didn't chase this blessing. It was always chasing you. You thought you were running after God, begging him to remember you. But the whole time, his goodness was hunting you down. His mercy was tracking your every step. His provision was closing the distance. And now, on October 20th, it has caught you. You can't outrun it anymore. You can't disqualify yourself anymore. You can't talk yourself out of it anymore. The order has your name. The delivery has your address. The blessing knows exactly where you live. And it's not asking for permission. It's not waiting for you to feel worthy. It's not contingent on you having all your theology straight or your past cleaned up. It's happening because God said so. And when God gives an order in heaven, hell has no authority to cancel it. When God writes your name on a blessing, no demon can erase it. When God schedules your due season, no delay can override it. So let me ask you something, and I want you to answer this in your spirit right now. What will you do with the everything God just placed in your hands? Will you shrink back into the old version of yourself that was trained to expect nothing? Will you apologize for taking up space at the table? Will you hand it over to someone else because you don't think you deserve it? Or will you rise up, lift your head, square your shoulders and say, "I receive everything heaven ordered for me"? Because here's the truth that will either liberate you or convict you. God is not waiting for you to be ready. He's waiting for you to receive. October 20th is not the day you prove yourself. It's the day you position yourself. It's the day you stop arguing with the gift and start stewarding it. It's the day you move from spectator to inheritor. If you're ready to step into your inheritance, if something in your spirit just broke open when I said everything is yours, I need you to do something right now. Type in the comments, "I receive everything heaven ordered for me." Say it out loud if you have to. Let your voice hear your faith. Let the atmosphere shift around you. Let heaven mark this moment as the second you stopped negotiating with your destiny and started claiming it. Because what comes next isn't just about you receiving. It's about you becoming the kind of person who can carry what's being released. And that transformation starts now. Now listen closely, because what I'm about to tell you changes everything you thought you understood about divine orders. When heaven releases something with your name on it, it doesn't just show up at your doorstep like a package from Amazon. It doesn't arrive because you simply exist. There is a spiritual law woven into the fabric of every divine promise, and if you don't understand this law, you will spend the rest of your life wondering why the blessing never landed. Here it is. When God releases something, He also requires something. Every divine order carries hidden clauses, instructions embedded in the delivery itself. And chosen one, the order that was sent on October 20th, wasn't just a blessing dropping out of the sky. It was a summons, a holy invitation that demands your response, your alignment, your movement. You see, heaven doesn't deliver to locked doors. God will not force His way into a life that refuses to open. He will not override your free will just because He loves you. The provision has been dispatched. The miracle has been wrapped. The breakthrough has your address. But if your heart is bolted shut by bitterness, if your mind is chained by unbelief, if your hands are too full of the old thing to receive the new thing, then the delivery sits outside, waiting. And here's what breaks my heart. Right now, across this nation, there are chosen ones standing inches away from their answered prayer, but they won't unlock the door. They're too angry at God for the delay, too offended by the process, too distracted by what didn't happen to notice what's happening right now. Let me take you to the Word. Genesis 6. God gives Noah an order: build an ark. But that order came with an instruction slip. It wasn't just about believing the flood was coming. It was about obeying in the preparation. Noah had to cut the wood. He had to measure the cubits. He had to move his body in rhythm with heaven's blueprint. For 120 years, he built while others mocked. But when the rain fell, his obedience became his salvation. You think Noah was just blessed? No. Noah was obedient. And obedience is what converts a divine promise into a physical reality. Look at Mary. Luke 1:38. The angel shows up with the most impossible announcement in human history: you will carry the Son of God. And Mary could have argued. She could have listed all the reasons it made no sense. Instead, she said 5 words that unlocked eternity: let it be unto me. That was her signature. That was her alignment. That was the moment heaven's order became flesh inside her womb. God didn't need her permission to choose her, but He required her surrender to use her. And what about Elijah? 1 Kings 19. He's running from Jezebel, hiding in a cave, convinced it's over. And God doesn't show up in the earthquake. He doesn't show up in the fire. He shows up in the still, small voice. And the instruction was simple: go back the way you came. Elijah had to stop running. He had to stop hiding. He had to realign his steps with the assignment he thought he lost. The order hadn't changed, but his attentiveness had to be restored. Do you see the pattern? Noah had to build. Mary had to surrender. Elijah had to listen and return. Every single one of them had a part to play. God moved heaven, but they had to move earth. So let me ask you something, and I need you to be brutally honest with yourself right now. What if you've been waiting for heaven to act, but heaven has been waiting for you to acknowledge delivery? What if the reason you haven't seen the manifestation is because you haven't signed the order with your obedience? What if God is saying, I sent it, I released it, I stamped it with my authority, but you haven't even opened the envelope? Heaven doesn't just need your faith. Heaven needs your participation, your yes, your movement, your willingness to let go of what you've been gripping so you can receive what He's giving. God's order requires your signature of faith. And that signature isn't just a prayer you whisper once and forget. It's a daily decision, a daily alignment, a daily choosing to believe that what He said is more real than what you see. Because here's the truth that most preachers won't tell you. The provision is already yours in the spirit realm. It's already been authorized. It's already in transit. But the manifestation requires your cooperation. It requires you to stop living like a victim and start living like an heir. It requires you to stop rehearsing the pain and start rehearsing the promise. It requires you to clean out the room in your life where the blessing is supposed to sit. You can't receive new wine in old wineskins. You can't download a new future into an old mindset. You can't step into abundance while you're still dressed in the language of lack. Something has to shift, and that shift starts with you. I know some of you are thinking, but I've been faithful. I've been praying. I've been waiting. And I believe you. But faithfulness without expectation is just religious routine. Praying without positioning is just noise. Waiting without preparation is just procrastination in disguise. God is not asking you to be perfect. He's asking you to be ready. He's asking you to act like someone who actually believes the order is real. Because when you start moving like it's already done, heaven starts moving what's in the way. So if you're ready, if you're truly ready to sign heaven's order with your obedience, I need you to do something right now. Type delivered and signed in the comments. Let that be your agreement. Let that be your alignment. Let that be the moment you stop waiting passively and start receiving actively. Because once you sign, everything shifts. But I need to warn you about something. Every delivery triggers a counterattack. And what's coming for you next will test whether you're really ready to keep what God is giving you. Now listen carefully, because what I'm about to tell you is going to make some of you uncomfortable. But I'd rather disturb your comfort than let you walk into an ambush unprepared. The moment God sends an order with your name on it, hell sends spam. The second heaven dispatches favor. The enemy deploys confusion. This is not theology. This is warfare. And if you don't recognize it, you'll mistake the attack for the answer. You need to understand something. The devil doesn't waste ammunition on people who aren't about to receive something. He doesn't scramble his forces for nobodies. He only sends counterattacks when heaven sends breakthroughs. So if your life suddenly got heavier, if your mind suddenly got louder, if your peace suddenly got stolen in the last 72 hours, that's not proof you're cursed. That's proof you're chosen. In the book of Daniel, chapter 10, verse 12, the angel told Daniel, "From the first day that you set your heart to understand and humbled yourself before your God, your words were heard, and I have come because of your words." But then the angel said something chilling. He said, "The prince of the kingdom of Persia withstood me 21 days. 21 days. The answer was sent on day 1. But it took 21 days to arrive because there was resistance in the unseen. Daniel didn't see the battle. He only felt the delay. And that delay almost made him quit. How many of you have been praying for something, and the silence made you think God said no? How many of you interpreted the delay as denial? You didn't know that your answer was in transit. You didn't know that angels were fighting in realms you can't see, just to get your blessing past enemy lines. But here's what you need to know right now. The enemy's counterorder comes in whispers. It doesn't show up like a demon with horns. It shows up like doubt at 2 a.m. It shows up like depression on a Sunday morning. It shows up like that voice in your head that says, "You're too old for this. You're too broken for this. You've made too many mistakes. God's not thinking about you anymore." That voice, that's not conviction. That's interference. That's hell trying to forge God's signature on a rejection letter that was never written. Distraction is the devil's postman. He can't stop the delivery, so he tries to make sure you're not home when it arrives. He'll send you an argument the week before your breakthrough. He'll reopen old wounds the day before your vindication. He'll make your body hurt, your mind race, your heart doubt, all so you're too exhausted to receive what's already been released. Fear is a forged signature. The enemy knows he can't cancel God's order, so he tries to make you cancel it yourself. He'll whisper, "Sign here. Agree that it's not real. Agree that you misheard. Agree that you're delusional." And the moment you agree, you just return to sender what was meant to transform your entire bloodline. But I need you to hear me. You are not defenseless in this. You are not a passive victim waiting to see who wins. You carry the same authority that sent the order in the first place. You have the legal right, the spiritual jurisdiction, The divine clearance to stamp return to sender on every lie the enemy tries to deliver to your door. 1 John 4:4 says it plain. He who is in you is greater than he who is in the world. That's not a motivational slogan. That's a legal document. That's your authority activated. You don't have to accept every thought that knocks on your mind. You don't have to sign for every feeling that shows up at your heart. You have discernment. You have power. You have the blood of Jesus as your verification code. So right now, I want you to say it out loud. I don't care who's in the room. I don't care if you're on the subway, in your kitchen, or sitting in a hospital waiting room. Say it with your mouth. Return to sender. The enemy's orders don't apply here. Say it again. Return to sender. Because when you declare that, you're not just rejecting a lie. You're enforcing a verdict that was already decided at Calvary. The enemy has no legal claim on your peace. He has no rights to your future. He has no authority over what God has already ordained. And the moment you speak that truth out loud, you activate the same power that raised Jesus from the dead. Now here's where it gets even more intense. Some of you are going to start seeing signs before October 20th even gets here. And those signs won't be loud. They won't be obvious. They'll be quiet, almost invisible. A phone call out of nowhere. A thought that won't leave you alone. A door that cracks open after years of being sealed shut. A conversation that shifts something in your spirit you can't explain. And the enemy is going to try to convince you it's nothing. He's going to whisper, "That's just coincidence. Don't get your hopes up. You've been disappointed before." But that whisper, that's the counter-order trying to intercept the miracle before it fully manifests. You see, hell doesn't just attack you before the blessing. He attacks you during the unfolding. Because he knows that if he can get you to dismiss the small signs, you'll miss the big shift. If he can get you to overlook the breadcrumbs, you'll never find the banquet. Job 33:14 says, God speaks once, yes, twice, yet man does not perceive it. God is not silent. You're just being trained to ignore his voice. The enemy has conditioned you to need everything to be loud, flashy, instant. But God moves in whispers before he moves in thunder. He sends the dove before he splits the sea. So when you start noticing things lining up, when you start feeling something shifting, when your spirit starts leaping for no logical reason, don't dismiss it. Don't rationalize it. Don't let fear tell you it's too good to be true. That's not delusion. That's confirmation. That's the order beginning to unpack itself in your reality. But what happens when you start to see signs that the order is unfolding? What if miracles begin quietly, almost invisibly? What do you do when heaven starts moving and hell starts panicking? You hold your position. You guard your peace. You refuse to let the noise drown out the signal, because the next 72 hours are critical. What's coming isn't just a blessing, it's a declaration. And you need to be ready to receive it with both hands open and both feet planted. Now listen closely. Chosen one. Because what I'm about to tell you is something most people will miss entirely. They're waiting for thunder. They're waiting for burning bushes. They're waiting for God to show up in a way that looks like the movies. But that's not how heaven operates when it's preparing your delivery. The signs don't start loud. They start soft, gentle, almost dismissible, like whispers in a language you forgot you knew. And if you're not paying attention, if you're too busy drowning in doubt or distracted by the noise of this world, you'll walk right past the evidence that your order has already shipped. So let me paint you a picture. Let me show you what divine confirmation actually looks like when it starts arriving in your atmosphere. There was a woman in Ohio, 72 years old, widowed, living alone in a house that used to hold laughter but now just holds memories. She told me she woke up at 2:47 inches the morning on a Tuesday. No alarm, no reason, just awake. And when she sat up in bed, she saw them. Feathers, white feathers, falling slowly through her bedroom like snow in the dead of summer. She blinked, rubbed her eyes, but they were still there, soft, silent, descending from a ceiling that had no explanation for their presence. She didn't tell anyone for 3 days because she thought she was losing her mind. But then the phone rang, a call from a lawyer she'd never met, an inheritance from a relative she barely remembered, enough money to pay off her home and live without fear for the rest of her life. The feathers weren't random, they were a sign, a holy breadcrumb, a whisper from the unseen that said, "I'm moving. Watch." That's how it starts. Not with explosions, with atmosphere. Maybe for you it's not feathers. Maybe it's a sudden, unexplainable peace that washes over your house at night. You've been anxious for months, maybe years. Your chest has been tight, your mind has been racing. And then one evening, without warning, without reason, the weight lifts. The air feels lighter. You can breathe again. And you don't know why. That's not coincidence. That's preparation. God is clearing the spiritual atmosphere around you because what's coming can't land in chaos. It needs clean airspace. Or maybe it's a dream. Not just any dream. A dream so vivid, so detailed, so real that when you wake up, you're not entirely sure you did. You saw faces you've never seen. You heard words you've never spoken. You walked through places that don't exist in this realm. And yet, something in your spirit recognized it all. Like you were remembering the future. Ecclesiastes 5:3 says, "A dream comes when there are many cares, but I'm telling you, there are dreams that come when heaven has many plans. Dreams that aren't born from stress, but from spirit. Dreams that are downloads, previews, divine trailers of what's about to play out in your waking life. Pay attention to them. Write them down. Because God is showing you the blueprint before the construction begins. And then there are the coincidences that aren't coincidences at all. You run into someone you haven't seen in 20 years. You pick up a book and it falls open to exactly the verse you needed. You turn on the radio and the first words you hear answer the question you just prayed. You check the time and it's 11, again and again and again. The world calls it synchronicity. The skeptics call it chance. But you know better. Because when it happens too many times, in too many ways, with too much precision, it stops being random and starts being orchestrated. Proverbs 16:9 tells us, "In their hearts humans plan their course, but the Lord establishes their steps." Every coincidence is a footprint of the divine. A sign that your steps are being guided, arranged, aligned. Some of you are experiencing health shifts you can't explain. That pain you've carried for years, it's easing. That fatigue that made every morning feel like a war, it's lifting. Your doctor has no medical explanation. The tests show nothing. But your body knows something changed. Because when God is about to release everything, He starts with the vessel. He strengthens what was weak. He heals what was broken. He restores what was depleted. You need to be strong enough to carry what's coming. And God doesn't drop glory on fragile foundations. Now let me tell you something that will shift how you see the next few days. The evidence of delivery isn't noise. It's not going to be loud. It's not going to be obvious to everyone around you. The evidence of delivery is atmosphere. It's the way a room feels when you walk into it. It's the way people suddenly start treating you differently without knowing why. It's the way doors you didn't knock on start opening. It's the way provision shows up before you even ask. Atmosphere is the language of the spirit realm, breaking into the natural. And if you've been sensing a shift, if things around you feel different, charged, almost electric, you're not imagining it. You're perceiving it. You're tuned into a frequency most people are spiritually deaf to. Type, "I've seen the signs" in the comments right now if something strange, beautiful, or unexplainable has already begun around you. Because I need you to recognize what's happening. I need you to stop dismissing the supernatural as coincidence. I need you to start reading the room heaven is setting for you. But here's what you need to brace yourself for. As the signs grow stronger, as the atmosphere around you becomes heavier with glory, Not everyone in your life is going to handle it well. Some people are going to feel uncomfortable in your presence. Some are going to pull away without explanation. Some are going to criticize what they can't comprehend. Because the weight of glory doesn't just reveal what's coming to you, it reveals who can't come with you. And that separation, that divine distancing, it's not punishment, it's protection. God is clearing your circle before He fills your cup, because what He's about to pour into your life is too sacred to be contaminated by the wrong voices, the wrong energy, the wrong influence. So if you've noticed people acting strange around you lately, if relationships are shifting, if doors are closing in your personal life while others are opening in your purpose, don't panic. That's part of the process. That's part of the preparation. That's part of the proof that October 20th isn't just a date on your calendar. It's a doorway, and you're about to walk through it. But before you do, there's something you need to understand about the order itself. Because what's been sent isn't just a blessing, it's an assignment. And not everyone who receives it will recognize what they're actually holding. Chosen one, I need you to listen to what I'm about to say with your whole heart, because this part hurts the most. When God's order arrives, when October 20th breaks open what heaven has sealed for you, some people in your life right now won't be there to celebrate it with you. Not because they're bad people, not because you did anything wrong, but because elevation requires separation. I know that stings. I know you've already felt it starting. The phone calls that used to come every Sunday, they've stopped. The friends who used to check on you, they've gone quiet. The family members who once believed in your dreams, now they roll their eyes when you mention God's promises. And you've been sitting there at your kitchen table, wondering if maybe you're the problem. Maybe you've changed too much. Maybe you've gotten too spiritual, too intense, too out there for the people who used to understand you. Let me tell you something that's going to set you free right now. You're not losing people. You're losing weights that can't fly at your altitude. The Bible says it clearly in Hebrews 12:1. Let us lay aside every weight and the sin which doth so easily beset us. Notice it says weight, not just sin. There are things in your life that aren't necessarily evil, they're just heavy. And when your wings grow, not everyone can stay in your nest. God is making room. He's clearing space. He's moving people out of your orbit before they sabotage your next chapter. And I know it feels like betrayal. I know it feels like abandonment. But what if? What if this is protection? What if God saw what you couldn't see? What if He heard the conversations they had about you when you weren't in the room? What if He knew that the moment your blessing arrived, their jealousy would poison it? What if He loved you enough to remove them before they could damage what He's about to deliver? You've been carrying people who were never meant to go where you're going. You've been trying to drag dead weight into a season that requires flight. And God, in His mercy, is cutting the ropes. I'm talking to someone right now who's lost friends over the last 6 months. People you prayed with, people you broke bread with, people you thought would be at your table forever. And now there's silence, cold shoulders, blocked numbers, unanswered texts. Listen to me, that wasn't an accident, that was an assignment. Heaven will move people out of your path when their presence would block your purpose. And yes, it hurts. Yes, you cry about it at night. Yes, you miss what it used to be, but you can't build a future holding on to people who are anchored in your past. Here's what the enemy doesn't want you to know. Every separation is preparing you for a greater connection. When God took Lot out of Abraham's life in Genesis 13, it looked like loss. Abraham was losing his nephew, his family, his companion. But the very next chapter, Genesis 14, God spoke the blessing that would make Abraham the father of nations. The separation wasn't punishment, it was positioning. You see, some people are assigned to your season, not your lifetime, and when the season shifts, they can't shift with you, not because they're evil, but because they're finished. Their assignment in your life is complete, and God is not cruel. He doesn't rip people away to hurt you. He redirects them to protect what's coming. Because the blessing you're about to walk into is so specific, so anointed, so precisely designed for you that the wrong voices in your ear could cause you to mishandle it. Some of you have been dealing with church hurt, betrayal from people who wore the same cross you wore, gossip from people who sat in the same pew, rejection from leadership that should have covered you, and you've been questioning God. If this is your house, why does it hurt so much here? Because, beloved, God is moving you from religion to relationship, from performance to presence, from a building to a burning bush, encounter that only happens in the wilderness. Moses had to leave Pharaoh's palace to find the real assignment at the backside of the desert. David had to leave Saul's court to be anointed in a cave. Jesus had to leave the synagogue to heal the people outside its walls. When God calls you higher, He often calls you out. So if you're sitting there tonight feeling isolated, misunderstood, like you don't fit anywhere anymore, good. That means you're right on time. The separation is the confirmation that the order is in motion. Now I'm going to ask you to do something that's going to feel impossible, but it's necessary. If you're ready to let go of what no longer aligns with your calling, if you're ready to stop forcing connections that God is trying to close, if you're ready to trust that the separation is not rejection but redirection, type "I release them" in the comments right now. Say it out loud if you have to. I release them. I release the hurt. I release the need to understand why. I release my grip on what God is prying out of my hands. Because here's the truth that's going to carry you into the next section. When God takes something, He never leaves you empty-handed. The exchange is coming, and what He's about to put in your hands will make you grateful, deeply, tearfully grateful, that your hands were forced open. Chosen one, let me tell you what's really happening on October 20th. This is not just about getting back what you lost. This is not about God patching up the holes in your life and sending you on your way with a band-aid and a blessing. No. What's coming is multiplication. What's arriving is restitution. What heaven is releasing is not a refund. It's a sevenfold return. You've been surviving, barely holding on, scraping by on fumes and faith. You've lived so long in the mode of just enough that you forgot what more than enough even feels like. You learned how to smile through scarcity. You mastered the art of praising God while your pockets stayed empty and your prayers seemed to echo back unanswered. But let me ask you something that might shake you awake. What if all those years weren't punishment? What if they were deposits? Every tear you cried in secret, that was a seed. Every night you stayed on your knees when everyone else gave up, that was an investment. Every moment you chose to worship instead of curse, that was you building equity in the heavenly vault. And now, October 20th is your withdrawal date. The Bible says it plainly in Joel 2:25. I will restore to you the years that the locust has eaten. Not some of the years, not a fraction of what was taken, all of it. And not just restored, multiplied. Because that's how God operates. He doesn't do half measures. He doesn't do charity. He does overflow. You think you're waiting on a miracle. But here's the shift that's about to blow your mind wide open. You're not waiting on the miracle anymore. You are the miracle. You are not a beggar standing outside heaven's gate, hoping someone tosses you a blessing. You are an heir standing at the threshold of your inheritance, and the doors are swinging wide because the King just called your name. Let that sink in for a second. You are an heir. Not because you earned it, not because you were perfect, but because you endured. Because you didn't abandon your post when the wilderness got long. Because you kept believing, even when belief made you look foolish. And now, everything is flipping. The heavens don't just give back what was stolen. They compensate you for the wait. They honor you for the endurance. They reward you for staying in position when everyone else walked away. Your faith was a seed. And baby, the harvest is about to go public. Think about this. How many times did you pray and hear nothing? How many times did you ask and got silence? How many birthday candles did you blow out wishing for the same thing, only to wake up the next year still empty-handed. But here's what you didn't see. While you were praying down here, heaven was arranging up there. While you were crying in the midnight hour, angels were being assigned to your case. While you were questioning if God even remembered your name, He was signing the divine decree that says, everything is theirs. Release it now. Proverbs 13:12 says, hope deferred makes the heart sick, but a longing fulfilled is a tree of life. You've been heartsick long enough, but what's coming isn't just a longing fulfilled. It's a tree of life planted in your name, rooted, permanent, generational. And here's the part that should make you weep and shout at the same time. Everything you prayed for, cried for, waited for, it's not just coming to you, it's coming through you. You are the vessel. You are the conduit. You are the walking, breathing evidence that God still answers, still restores, still vindicates His own. You are the order. Heaven's command isn't in transit anymore. It's not delayed in some cosmic shipping center. It has landed, and it landed in you. So let me ask you, if you are the manifestation, if you are the living proof that God keeps His word, then what are you going to do with it? Because after October 20th, you won't just have a testimony, you'll have a responsibility. What happens after the miracle? What do you do with everything you've been given? That's what we're about to uncover next. Chosen one, we've come to the end of this word, but not the end of what God is doing in your life. Let me remind you of what you need to carry with you from this moment forward. October 20th is not just a date. It's a divine appointment. It's the day heaven has marked for your manifestation. Everything that was delayed, denied, or hidden is now being released. You are not waiting anymore. You are receiving. You are not a survivor barely getting by. You are an heir stepping into fullness, and you are not the one chasing the blessing. You are the blessing. Remember that. But I also need you to hear this. You are not alone in this journey. I know there were nights when it felt like you were the only one still believing, like you were the only one still praying, like you were the only one God forgot. But that was a lie. God has been with you every single step, in the silence, in the waiting, in the tears no one else saw. He never left. He was never distant. He was working, and He's still working right now. And there's something else you need to know. You're part of a community, right here, right now. Thousands of people watching this video are walking the same road you are. They've felt the same pain. They've prayed the same prayers. They've questioned the same doubts. You are not isolated. You are not forgotten. You are surrounded by a cloud of witnesses who believe with you, stand with you, and are cheering you on as you step into everything God has prepared. So let me ask you this. If God has brought you this far, if He's kept you through everything that tried to break you, if He's still whispering your name in the midnight hour, what are you going to do with the miracle He's about to release? Let that question sit with you. And before you go, I want to pray over you. Not a quick surface prayer, but a deep, covering, anointed prayer that reaches into the places where you've been hurting and speaks life over every dead thing. So if you're ready, I want you to receive this. Close your eyes if you can. Open your hands and let these words wash over your soul. Father God, in the name of Jesus, I come before you right now on behalf of every person hearing my voice. Lord, you see them. You know their name. You know their struggle. You know the weight they've been carrying that no one else can see. You know the prayers they've prayed in secret. You know the tears they've cried in the dark. And God, you have not forgotten a single one. I pray right now that you would release everything you have ordained for their life. Break every delay, shatter every barrier, dissolve every doubt. Remove every obstacle that has stood between them and their divine inheritance. On October 20th, let them feel your presence in a way they have never felt before. Let them see your hand move in ways that leave no room for question. Let them know, beyond any shadow of doubt, that you are still God, you are still faithful, and you still keep your promises. Restore what was stolen, multiply what was sown in tears, heal what was broken, vindicate what was misunderstood, and let them walk into this new season, not with fear, but with confidence, not with shame, but with authority, not as beggars, but as heirs. Cover them with peace that surpasses understanding. Surround them with favor that cannot be explained. And let every person, every place, and every provision that belongs to them find its way to them by your divine orchestration. We declare that October 20th is the day of manifestation, the day of restoration, the day of vindication. And we receive it now, in Jesus' mighty name. Amen. Now, chosen one, I want to hear from you. Drop a comment below and tell me, what are you believing God for on October 20th? What's the one thing you've been praying for that you know is about to break open? Share it, declare it. Let this community pray with you and agree with you in faith. And if this message stirred something in your spirit, don't keep it to yourself. Share this video with someone who needs to hear it. Send it to that friend who's been struggling. Post it for that family member who's losing hope, because there's someone in your circle right now who needs to know they're not forgotten. They need to know that God's order has been sent for them too. Before you go, if you haven't already, hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications. Every week, I'm releasing words like this, words that are meant to ignite your faith, restore your hope, and remind you who you really are in the eyes of God. Thank you for being here. Thank you for watching all the way to the end. Thank you for trusting me with your time, your attention, and your heart. I'm praying for you. I'm believing with you. And I'll see you in the next video. Until then, remember, you are chosen, you are covered, and everything is yours. Now go walk in it.